Hello everyone and welcome back to Dirty Zeros into a new series that we're starting up here, a new series called Instruction Skippers. And this is a series where we're going to be explaining to you, the viewer, how to play certain games that we play here on the channel. Today's subject, I'm going to be explaining Selfish, a new game that we'll be releasing on the channel in just a couple of days, so stay tuned for that. But if you're just here to figure out how to play the game Selfish, please stick around, I'll be very willing to tell you. Selfish is published by Ridley Games and pits 5 players up against each other to try and escape a perilous circumstance. In Dungeon Edition, the one we played on this channel, it specifically pits you and your friends up against each other to try and escape a deep, dark and perilous dungeon before it consumes you. This is a game about risk, reward, resource management, and just trying to screw over your friends just a little bit. In this video, we'll be running over the setup of the game, the gameplay itself, the different win conditions you may be able to find yourself in this game, and many of the different cards that you might be using in the game and explaining some of their effects. All of those timestamps will be in the description of this video. Now, let's get right into the setup of the game. To begin setting up the game of Selfish, you're going to need to grab this little guide here. This is a little dungeon guide to show you how many dungeon levels you and your friends have gotten through. You get to place that one right here. It obviously says along here, the exit lie above here. That is where you're trying to get to. But we're starting where it tells us to start. Heroes start here. This is the point of the game where you and your allies get to pick who you want to be. We have the wizard. We have the fighter. We have the bard. We have the archer. And finally, the classic barbarian. Now, there aren't too many differences in, there's no major advantages that you're going to get by picking either one, so just pick the one that you resonate with the most and we'll go from there. I am going to go with the bard today. Now I'm going to place him right here because he kind of looks like me. But we'll go up against the barbarian and we'll say the archer for this video. You may notice that when you flip these characters around, there's a little skeletal ghoul version of them. Don't worry about it. That is just subtle foreshadowing as to how your fate will be in the dungeon later. I'll explain that all in just a moment, but if you want to check that out now, all the timestamps, as I said, are in the description of this video. Once you've placed your heroes at this starting point as previously instructed, you want to next grab your exit cards. These cards look all identical on the backs, but they are all different on this side. That is done intentionally. What you need to do is you need to shuffle them and not know which one is which. To which then you will place them randomly at the top here, not knowing what is on the other side. I'll explain that when we get to it. Now it is time to deal out players their hands. To begin, you want to grab the game deck. The game deck looks a little something like this. This is going to be what you draw from for the majority of the game. You want to look through the deck and you want to pull out specific cards to give to each player. You want to pull out 4 light cards, which look a little something like this. Each player will have 4, there we go, to begin with in their hand. Additionally, they will start off with 1 double light card, which looks a little something like this. So, each player should have 4 light cards and 1 double light card in their hand. Once everyone has the correct amount in their hand, you will then take the remainder of the game deck, which may have more lights in it or other helpful items in there. You want to shuffle it and you want to deal out each player another 4 cards. So by the end of this whole sequence, each player should have 9 cards in their hand. As shown here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Brilliant. Now that I've drawn my hand and every other player hopefully has theirs, you want to grab that game deck that you just played from, right here, and you're going to place that right here at the just next to our little reference board here. Once this deck is down, you're going to need to place this deck down. This is the dungeon deck. This is going to lay the path to your adventure. So you're going to put that down right here. And then finally, you're going to grab the Skull Legion deck. It's a bit of a confusing one before you die. But don't worry about death for now. I'll explain the Skull Legion later. You're not going to die. Just, you'll be fine. Once these decks are in the correct order, make sure you have your lucky little dice here at the ready. And we're ready to play. This is where it gets exciting. Once everyone's decided that they're ready to play, someone decides who they're going first. Because no one's here to contest me, I'm going to go first. So the bard here is going to go through a series of 3 steps of its turn. Step number 1, I will draw a card. Once I've drawn a card, I move on to step 2, which is my action phase. Once you've drawn your card, you move on to step 2, which is your action phase. During your action phase, you will choose any number of cards in your hand that you can play out, and you may play it if you'd like to. You can play as many cards on your turn or as little cards on your turn as you would like. It is good to maintain a relatively healthy hand size, so be careful with how many cards you play, but go for your life. If you really want to ruin your friends, play as many cards as you want to do that. However, for this turn, I'm going to stay conservative and not play any cards. I will explain the rest of these action cards later in the video, so if you're interested in that, please go check that out. But for now, I'm holding on to this. Finally, we move on to step 3, and this is the core mechanic of the game. You have to choose to either move forward or rest. Moving forward is a simple action of going further into the dungeon. To do that, you're going to need to discard 2 light cards. That is either 2 single light cards, as shown here, or 1 double light card. I'm going to use a double light card. I'm going to discard that right here, and my character indeed moves forward. Once my character moves further into the dungeon, we start playing around with the dungeon deck. But I'm going to explain that in a second. Before we do that, I'm going to explain what waiting does. If you want to wait, you still have to expend light. So, you have to expend instead only 1 light instead of 2 for moving forward, which you can just do by taking this, discarding it, and you can just stay where you are. Now, you might be wondering, what if I don't want to discard my light? I like my light and I want to keep it. Well, if you cannot discard light when you are asked to, either by moving forward, staying, or if something in the dungeon or a player requires you to discard a light card, if it is impossible for you to do so, you die. Yep, that's it. You're just dead, and that sucks. My little bard boy he didn't even get to the next part of the video. I'm just gonna have to play as the barbarian for now, but I'm just gonna take a moment for my boy here. That's man, that's a shame. That is a shame. However, he has now just joined the Skull Legion, which might sound familiar. He gets a few extra actions that you still get to do even if you are dead, so you're not completely bored while playing the game. However, we'll get to that later. For now, I'm just going to have to take up the mantle of the barbarian, which I don't love. I kind of liked my bard, but for you guys, I will play as the barbarian so you know what to do. So we're going to progress through the dungeon as this barbarian, and they're going to tell you how to just do that. So, to move through the dungeon, as I said, I'm going to discard 2 light cards, or 2 light tokens, and I'm going to move up 1. Now, I need to reveal the top card of this dungeon deck and play it down right behind me. Then I will immediately resolve its effects. So, I've got this one. This is Dimension Door. This swaps the place of my barbarian with another player of my choice. Well, that's not great, but I will just simply choose the archer. They get a bit of a lead, but it's not too bad. Then, it goes around like that. The next player will draw a card, play as many action cards as they want, then decide if they want to stay in the dungeon or move forward into the dungeon. And the game will go on like that until we reach the end. However, before we reach the end, I'm going to go through the dungeon deck and I'm going to explain a few of the cards so you know what to expect when you're exploring through the dungeon. However, if you don't want any spoilers, skip right ahead to this timestamp. Wow, that wasn't even the sound effect that we put in. I made that noise. So, in the dungeon, you'll find a few different cards. As we have seen before, we find the Dimension Door. This helps you teleport with another player. That may hinder or help you out, depending on the circumstance that you get that dungeon card. you may get some loot cards. You find some loot in the dungeon. It's pretty nice, helps you draw some cards. And place them right there so you can see that. Now, what I would say the opposite of the loot cards are, where you get a nice little buff up from drawing those little cards, you may find some monster cards. Now, these monsters force you to fight them, where either you roll the indicated die side, as shown on the card there, or you suffer the consequences, and most of the time you lose some light, and that is very dangerous. Because again, if you cannot discard the light that it's requiring you to, you will die. Barbarian's safe for now, but you watch it. Point of clarification, that kind of got myself and my friends confused when we first played this game. This question mark here is effectively, you choose. So if I'm to face this dragon, this question mark indicates a chosen named face of this dice that I think I will roll. So we've got a shield. Now I'll say that I'm going to roll the loot in honor of my dead bard friend. And because I'm playing the barbarian, it says I can roll my hero skill as well, which is an axe. So I would need to roll a shield, my chosen symbol, the loot, or the axe to defeat the dragon here. I didn't, but we're going to pretend I did, so it's fine. On to the other dungeon rooms. We have, of course, the dimensional door that teleports you to somewhere else. We have the fates, where you will roll the dice and you get a random outcome as shown on this card. And finally, we have the only nice card that you can pull, other than the loot of course, safe passage, where nothing happens, you move forward with no problems. So the game has progressed just a little bit now. You can see that our barbarian friend has reached the end. Now we've got a choice to make. We must still expend some light to get to a choice. We need to choose a door. And if you remember from the start of the video, we shuffled these in random order. So we don't know what's on the other side of these doors. Only fate does. So, randomly choose a door and hope and pray that you have succeeded in your journey through this dungeon. We're going to choose this one. The locked exit. The locked exit does not let me through unless I have a skeleton key in my hand. In fact, let's go through all the doors. So, we first have the best door, the victory door. If you open this door, you win. Simple as that. You get to gloat to your friends that you've made it out of the dungeon and they did not. However, we opened the locked door. This door is a conditional victory. If in your hand throughout the game you have drawn into a skeleton key, then you will be able to unlock the door and leave, continuing to gloat to your friends. However, if you did not find this card in time and you open this locked door, unfortunately, you will be sent back one. This gets discarded and you must try again. However, that is much nicer than the final door here, the dark portal. There is no conditional victory here. You simply get shunted back 2 spaces and must trek through this dungeon once again. It is important to know that if you do not win upon opening the doors, either you open the locked exit and don't have the skeleton key, or you open the dark portal, you flip them back around as you continue through the dungeon. This is done intentionally, as it forces you guys all to remember which door was which, and if your opponents weren't really paying attention, maybe they might make the same slip up that you did. Me and the archer have been playing by ourselves for a good amount of time now. My old bard is getting really bored. What does the bard do when dead? There is actually a very interesting answer. As I have previously mentioned, they have joined the Skull Legion. Now, if you have died tragically in this journey, on your turn, instead of trying to push up through the dungeon, you will simply draw 1 card from the Skull Legion deck at the top of your turn, and it will give you a certain number of skull points. That is 1 skull point, 2 skull points, or 3 skull points, or if you're very unlucky, none. Once you draw your skull point, we have gotten 1, you have 2 actions to do on your turn, each taking up 1 skull point. You can move up to many times as you have skull points. So for this one, I have 1. And you can only move along already discovered dungeon tiles, like so. Once you finish your turn, you place the card at the bottom of the Skull Legion deck, and you place it right back down. And then at the start of your turn, you'll draw another Skull Legion card. We have 2 points this time. And we'll move closer and closer to our enemies now. We'll say that we have reached the Archer now. We are currently on the same space. This unlocks a new action. Our second action, the attack action. We can only attack once per turn. Even if we have 3 skull points, we can still only attack once per turn. Once we attack a fleshy enemy, we steal at random 1 card from their hand. That could be a light card, that could be a very helpful item that they needed. Gone. That is now yours and you get to keep it in your undead hand. There are only 2 circumstances where that would not happen. The first instance would be if they were to play a Mage Armor card. A Mage Armor card, which would simply block the attack and they do not give you any cards from their hand. But the more important one to you and what your true goal is to find the Sacred Chalice. Because if they have this in their hand, they are obligated, they are forced to give this to you. And you come back alive. You come back down to here, you revive, and you get to play the game once again. You're a little behind, but I'm just happy my bard's alive, if I'm being honest. Now, as I've just been explaining, there are a few cards in here that I was slightly dabbling on. So let me run you through them right now. So, there are a few different cards in the game I'm going to run you through right now. First of which being the ones we've already gone over. The light cards. If you skip the first part of the video where I explain how important these are, I need to reiterate this to you. This is super important. You die without this. If you are asked to discard light and you do not have any in your inventory, you will die. To move forward in the game, you need to discard 2 light, or if you want to stay put, you need to discard 1. You can discard 2 single lights anytime in place of a double light, and you can actually discard a double light to gain 2 single lights if you so choose. Though they are not officially called this, I like to call these the trader cards. And they come in the form of the misdirection card, the traitor card, or the looter card. The looter card, you get to choose a player and randomly steal 1 card from their hand. So you get extra card, they lose 1. A little bit annoying and a little bit funny. Misdirection card, you force one of your opponents to move back by 1 space, setting them back oh so slightly. And finally, the most damaging one, in my opinion, the traitor card. You force your opponent to discard 1 light. And if they don't have a light to discard, you know what happens. That bard just died again. What a shame. What a shame. Now we're going on to what I call the self-aid cards. Even though one of these you get to potentially hinder your opponent with. We have the secret door card. When you play the secret door card out of these options, you get to move forward 1 space without discarding any light at all. That alone is very helpful. But then you get to ignore the effects of the room ahead. This can be helpful or a bit of a hindrance to you. You may pull into a good dungeon that would have helped you, but you still don't get the effects. Alternatively, you could pull into a very dangerous enemy that suddenly you don't have to fight, all thanks to this card. A very helpful card. Keep them around for a pinch. Then we have a good fun card, the Tome of Sight. Using the Tome of Sight, you get to look at the top 3 cards of the dungeon deck, and you get to rearrange it in any order you see fit. I see that here that there is a dungeon spider and a treasure trap. I could choose to fight the treasure trap and potentially draw myself a card, but I think it's a bit dangerous. I'm going to leave the treasure trap at the bottom, keep safe passage at the very top, so I know I will draw into safe passage when I need to move next. Finally, we have reactionary cards. These cards don't need to be played on your action turn, but instead can be used as a reaction to someone else doing something to you, potentially on their turn. As we've gone over already, the Sacred Chalice. If acquired by anyone of the Skull Legion, they simply revive themselves. Very helpful for them. But there is a good benefit for you holding on to this, because if you die for any reason, you simply come right back to life. Discard that and you don't die at all. We have the Lucky Talisman now. The Lucky Talisman is used when you roll a dice and you don't like the outcome of it. You just get to play the card, re-roll the dice, and hopefully you get a better outcome. We have Magic Armor. The Magic Armor prevents any attacks from the Skull Legion where you would have to discard a card. Simply play the Magic Armor and you do not have to discard a card. That even includes if you're holding on to the Sacred Chalice. They want it, they can't have it. There is another benefit to having the Magic Armor card. If someone wants to play one of these very annoying cards against you, the Misdirection, the Traitor, or the Looter, you simply can throw a Magic Armor up and that effect does not happen to you. Finally, we have the Skeleton Key, which previously was described to allow you to exit through the locked exit. Once you find the locked exit, you can reveal that you have the Skeleton Key and you leave and you win. Helpful to have, keep it a secret though. Selfish is a hilarious game about treachery, backstabbing, plundering, and a little bit of luck. And hopefully, thanks to this video, you've found a new game that will either have you laughing hysterically with your friends or screaming horribly at them. Either way, we did our job and this game did its job as well. But you've come to the end of the video. That is everything you need to know how to play Selfish. If you like this tutorial, please go check out our other tutorials if you want to find out how to play other games. If you want a deeper dive breakdown of how this game works, maybe look at some gameplay of it, we at the Dirty Zeros have played this game and have already put it on the channel for you to watch. You can go check it out in the description below. If it's already released, it'll be released tomorrow if our timeline's correct. But you can go check that out and get a full in-depth breakdown of how to play this game. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching. We really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoy this new series about us breaking down games so you can have a proper understanding going right into it. Thank you for watching Instruction Skippers. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, all those good things if you really like this video. It really helps us out and we really appreciate it. If you want to find yourself in a community where you're talking about this, games like this or other elements of Dirty Zeros that we have cultivated under this channel, please go check out our Discord that is also in the description of this video. But otherwise, we'll catch you guys later. Thank you so much for watching and happy gaming.